Rockets is inevitable. And the observatory cancels all tropical cyclone warning signals.
Good evening. Germans began voting in a national election today that will likely see Chancellor Angela Merkel win a historic fourth term. The election is also on track to see a far-right party enter parliament for the first time since World War II. On the eve of the election, Angela Merkel took a walk in the old town of Stralsund to meet supporters. She's expected to win her fourth run at chancellorship and beat her opponent, Martin Schulz of the center-left Social Democrats.
Her lead is very big. We have her at 40, 46, 47%, and Schulz at only 22, 23%. The Christian Democrats will win this election, no matter how big the difference will be to the Social Democrats.
Merkel also took part in a world record attempt to encourage people to practice CPR. She suffered setbacks over her decision to leave German borders open to over 1 million migrants in 2015. Now, with the migrant issue under control, she set off on a campaign to prove she's an anchor of stability. And many of her constituents agree.
Definitely for Europe, she's a good solution because I think, Germany is one of the biggest countries in Europe, and I think she put the parts together. She held everything together.
Speaking at his final campaign rally before the election, Merkel's challenger, Martin Schulz, vowed to fight for a victory until the very last minute. Christian Lindner is the leader of the Free Democratic Party, or FDP. As a chancellor candidate, he said he hopes his party at least comes in third place so it can lead the opposition in the legislative body. But proving just how much German politics have changed in the last decade, the Alternative for Germany Party, or AfD, will likely become the first right-wing party to enter parliament.
The AfD will indeed be the first right-wing radical party who will make it into the federal parliament. At the federal level, this would be the first time since the Second World War.
The AfD runs on a Eurosceptic and anti-immigration platform.
Wir wollen nicht eine Masseneinwanderung.
Their leader says, we don't want a large number of refugees. We don't want a strange culture to invade. We just want to carry forward what our parents left us. But many in Germany believe right-wing parties stand for fascism and racism. Their founder said shame on Merkel for bashing them as racists.
Nonsense. We are not racist, we are not nationalists, we are a democratic party, and we don't accept this Merkel bashing.
Right before voting got underway today, surveys showed Merkel's conservative bloc leading with 34 to 37% support, followed by Social Democrats with 21 to 22%, and the AfD trailing in third at 13%.
North Korea says targeting the U.S. mainland with its rockets is inevitable. Those remarks by the country's foreign minister came as mudslinging over Pyongyang's nuclear weapons and missile programs reaches new heights. With tensions escalating by the day, North Korea's foreign minister addressed the United Nations General Assembly yesterday.
나는 먼저
Ri Yong-ho called U.S. President Donald Trump President Evil and warned that Pyongyang is ready to defend itself if the U.S. shows any sign of conducting a military attack.
He tried to insult the supreme dignity of my country by referring it to a rocket. By doing so, however, he committed an irreversible mistake of making our rockets visit to the entire U.S. mainland inevitable all the more. None other than Trump himself is on a suicide mission in case innocent lives of the U.S. are harmed because of this suicide attack, Trump will be held totally responsible.
Ri said sanctions will have no effect on Pyongyang's resolve to develop its nuclear weapons, with the ultimate goal being balance of power with the U.S. Pyongyang conducted its sixth and largest nuclear test earlier this month and has threatened to test a hydrogen bomb over the Pacific. Also on Saturday, North Korea held a mass rally against America. State media said more than 100,000 people attended the event. Ri's speech capped a week of rising tensions between Washington and Pyongyang, with Trump and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un trading insults. Trump called Kim a madman on Friday, a day after Kim dubbed him a mentally deranged U.S. dotard. After Ri's speech, Trump said on Twitter that both Ri and Kim won't be around much longer. Hours before the foreign minister's speech, U.S. B-1B Lancer bombers, escorted by fighter jets, flew in international airspace over waters east of North Korea. The Pentagon said the show of force demonstrates the range of military options available to the president. Officials say the flight was the farthest north of the demilitarized zone, separating North and South Korea that any U.S. fighter jet or bomber has flown this century. Previous shows of force with bombers have stayed south of the demilitarized zone. The United States has imposed unilateral sanctions on Iran, saying its missile tests violate the UN resolution. Iran said on Saturday it had successfully tested a new ballistic missile with a range of 2,000 kilometers and will keep developing its arsenal despite U.S. pressure to stop. Iran denies its missile development breaches the UN resolution and says its missiles are not designed to carry nuclear weapons. It says the weapons are for defense and retaliation against any aggressive enemy. Meanwhile, Iraq has asked nuclear countries for assistance in building a nuclear power reactor. The call comes more than 25 years after the destruction of the reactors it had under Saddam Hussein. Iraq's foreign minister told the United Nations General Assembly that a nuclear reactor would be used for peaceful purposes, saying the country has a right to use atomic power peacefully. Turkey's parliament has voted to extend by a year a mandate authorizing the deployment of Turkish troops in Iraq and Syria. The move steps up pressure against the independence referendum in northern Iraq's Kurdish region set for tomorrow. Ankara said it will take security, economic, and political steps in response to the referendum, which it has described as a terrible mistake that would trigger a new regional crisis. Turkey says the vote would threaten its security and may force it to slap sanctions on Iraq. Western powers have also urged Kurdish authorities to cancel the vote, saying the move distracts from the fight against Islamic State. The Kurdistan delegation is negotiating with the Iraqi government in an effort to diffuse tensions, but they say the vote is going ahead. Iraq's parliament views the referendum as unconstitutional.
Now to a mass acid attack in London that's left 6 people injured. A police spokesman says the case is not being treated as terror-related. Agonizing screams rang out near the Stratford Center in Stratford. That's where witnesses say a gang of thugs began spraying people with a noxious liquid. Police say police and paramedics rushed to the scene and began treating victims. One 15-year-old male was arrested on suspicion of causing grievous bodily harm. Acid attacks have increased in Britain in recent years and are linked to robberies and gang-related violence.
French far-left opposition party leader Jean-Luc Mélenchon yesterday drew tens of thousands to a rally against President Emmanuel Macron's labor reforms. Mélenchon tweeted that more than 150,000 people had joined the demonstration in Paris, while police put the number at about 30,000. This came one day after Macron signed the labor decrees that reduce French unions' influence over workplace rules and make it easier for companies to fire workers. Mélenchon told the crowd that the battle is not over and that it is only the beginning. He urged the protesters to take to the streets and mount strikes to force the president to withdraw the labor law changes. Macron's labor decrees are due to enter into force by the start of next year.
And back locally, the standby signal number 1 was officially canceled at 7:20 this evening. This as the tropical depression that triggered the storm signal is departing from the territory. The city saw downpours and thunderstorms earlier today. The tropical depression is located about 520 kilometers southwest of the city. It's expected to move west-northwest and make landfall on Hainan Island in the next couple of hours.
2 days after a fatal bus crash in Shamshui-Po, 15 people remain in hospital, 4 of them in serious condition. As Rachel Lung reports, the City Bus Limited Employees Union wants the government to reduce drivers' maximum working hours each day, saying long hours could lead to safety issues on the road.
Flowers and tributes at the intersection of Chengshaowan Road and Yunchou Street, where an E21A city bus double-decker mounted the pavement on Friday and slammed into the concrete canopy of a building, killing 3 people. Friends and family members returned to the scene of the crash to pay respects to the deceased. Bus drivers' maximum working hours has come under the spotlight since the crash. Under the guidelines on working schedule for bus drivers, the maximum number of working hours should not exceed 14 a day. Drivers cannot be behind the wheel for more than 11 hours per shift. They are also entitled to have a 30-minute break after driving for about 6 hours. And within that 6-hour period, drivers should have service breaks of at least 20 minutes in total. The company whose driver was involved in Friday's crash admitted earlier that it is short on drivers. But its management insisted that the driver had more than 10 hours of rest between his shifts before he started his 14-hour shift at 5 p.m. on Friday. But is that enough? The City Bus Limited Employees Union indicated that there's a need for a change. Driving isn't as easy as it looks. It takes a lot of concentration and energy, said Mr. Low, an overnight bus driver. He recalled one time when he had a severe headache. He couldn't do anything about it because painkillers would affect his driving ability. The union has been urging the Transport Department to lower bus drivers' working hours and driving duty hours to 12 and 10 hours a day, respectively, as long hours could lead to safety issues on the road. What else could be done to address the manpower shortage? The group suggested a salary increase, saying only that will enable bus companies to inject new blood into the industry. Rachel Lung, TVB News.
And still ahead in our newscast, Spain's state police take the lead over Catalonia's local police. Women included in Saudi National Day celebrations for the first time. And e-payment facilities enter service at the Aberdeen Tunnel.
Welcome back to TVB News. The mounting political crisis in Spain over Catalonia's campaign for independence is intensifying, with a new battle over the control of the local police force. Control over the police is considered key to the success of a planned October 1st independence vote. The state prosecutor in Catalonia told all local and national police forces yesterday that they had been temporarily placed under a single chain of command, reporting directly to Madrid. Spanish laws allow for the possibility of state police taking the lead over the police of an autonomous community during a joint operation. Catalans have been rallying against the new measures.
Debate on importing foreign workers continues here in Hong Kong. While unions want to put local workers first, some nursing homes are looking outside of Hong Kong as they struggle to hire locally. Elmi Lung explains.
Even when it's mealtime, not everyone gets to eat. Of the more than 100 senior residents at this home for the elderly, more than 20 need to be spoon-fed. With only 15 carers, the facility is seriously short-staffed. It's a headache for Pun Yui Pan, the nursing home superintendent, even if he reached out to an agency for additional local helpers. Sometimes they don't show up. It's quite common, especially when other elderly homes offered higher wages when they are in urgent need of extra hands. He hopes the government can relax rules for government-subsidized nursing homes. Currently, only private ones can import workers from outside Hong Kong under the Supplementary Labour Scheme. In June, government figures indicated that the vacancy rate at local elderly homes exceeded 8%. While Secretary for Labour and Welfare Lo Chi Kwong stressed the importance of retaining staff and attracting new blood through improving work conditions, he said there's a need to consider importing foreign workers if the vacancy rate reaches a double-digit figure. In the past 5 years, caregivers make up roughly 40% of all imported labourers. Last year, over 1,300 imported workers arrived to provide elderly care. Cheng Ching-Fat of the Hong Kong Confederation of Trade Unions is against relaxing laws for non-local workers. He said an average caregiver earns $13,000 a month, and wages haven't been adjusted for years when imported workers are available. Why sweat at an elderly home on low wages when you can easily earn the same amount working as a security guard? Chang asked. Elmi Long, TVB News.
The Council of Social Service is planning to lease private land for its scheme to offer shipping container homes as temporary housing for the needy. It also helps to introduce those homes next year and is currently looking for suitable sites for the project. Caleb Leung has more.
The Hong Kong Council of Social Service came up with the plan of shipping container homes after visiting the Netherlands. The containers will be used as temporary homes for those waiting for public housing. The council's chief executive, Chua Hoi Wai, says some developers are willing to provide land at a relatively low rate. The developers are now looking for suitable sites for the project.
The land which will be convenient in terms of transportation, which has the infrastructure built up, like the water, electricity and drainage already set up. And also the size would be big enough, say a few thousand square feet.
Chua also explained why some developers would lease out these lands instead of developing them.
Sometimes they may work on other projects instead of that one. And sometimes they may also want to acquire a bigger piece of land so that they could have a bigger development. So when this is not yet achieved, maybe they could have part of the land available for us.
Earlier this month, the council also launched its Community Housing Movement project. It is a flat-sharing scheme for those in desperate need of housing. Chua says the rent under this scheme will be capped at 25% of the tenant's household income.
The high limit will usually be the maximum amount of rental allowance under the CSSA scheme, that's the Comprehensive Social Security Assistance Scheme. But we still think that some families may not be able to afford this level of rent. In that case, we also impose another cap, which would be 25% of the household income.
Caleb Leung, TVB News.
Beginning today, motorists using the Aberdeen Tunnel have more paying options at the toll booths. Drivers can now use the stop-and-go e-payment facilities at the manual toll booths. There, they can pay their tolls by octopus or contactless credit cards. There are 2 sets of card reader panels at each booth for vehicles of different heights. Cash payments will still be accepted at these booths. The Aberdeen Tunnel is the second tunnel to implement the system